What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a budget competitive profile for pure Mitsurugi. So as a disclaimer on this one, it does not involve Dominus Impulse and it doesn't involve free Mitsurugi Ritual. We're only going to be utilizing 2 as that is currently the most expensive card for the deck. You could sacrifice it down to 1 if you still can't afford it but really want to play the deck and keep your budget quite tidy as well, but it does kind of cost you a little bit in consistency, and that's when you're going to need to use more of the cards in the deck that I'm going to show you in order to increase that consistent factor. It's also something that if you wanted to, you could look at a Dogmatica package, but ultimately, if you're going to be paying out for the Dogmatica package, you could afford that next copy of the Mitsurugi Ritual, which is something you might want to be focusing on. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm going to talk you through the upgrades that you can put into if you have a little bit more investment, and I'll talk you through some of the alternatives of the more expensive cards. I do feel that this is one of the better decks that we have right now in this format. It's already shown itself by being able to top multiple YCSs, regionals, nationals, you name it, and it's definitely one of them decks when you're looking at the competitive decks of Ryzeal versions of this deck, Malices as well. It's one of the ones that is definitely the cheaper option in order to put a deck together and compete. So, diving headfirst into the profile, we're going to be starting off with our main starter being the Aramasa. If you acted quick enough, you should have been able to get all of the brand new Mitsurugi core as about £10 on tier 0 games. That may have gone up in price now, as I believe the ritual monster itself, the Mitsurugi Amano Habakuri, is currently like £5 per copy, but you should be able to get a playset and a core if you acted fast enough relatively cheap without breaking the bank. Going back to the Aramasa, if it is normal or special or it is attributed, you get to add a Mitsurugi monster from the deck to the hand, except itself. If another reptile monster or monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to tribute this card instead. This is the important factor of the Mitsurugi strategy, is it all revolves around tributing, and I love the fact that this protection effect is tribute, not just send this to the graveyard or destroy it instead. It is specifically worded to trigger the effects. We've then got the one Sergi and the one Kusanagi. You can play more Sergi if you want to, but you still really want your Aramasa to be your main summon, because the Sergi just really falls foul to any form of interaction on it. So if it is normal or special, or this card is tributed, you get to add a Mitsurugi spell and trap from the deck to the hand. The benefit of something like this, where you want to play more copies of it, if you don't have multiple copies of the Mitsurugi Ritual, that's when you're going to want to bump up the Sergi. So technically, if you were to take out a Mitsurugi Ritual and go down to 1 copy, you'd put this back up to 2, and that's when you're going to get a little bit more utility out of it. It does mean you're going to rely on your Mitsurugi Prayers, and it does also mean you're going to fall foul a little bit more to draw on Lockbird, which is why you want to be considering some of the cards I've put in here. You could even consider something like Salesban if you are going to go down that route, as technically you could get a playset of Salesban for the same price of 1 Mitsurugi Ritual. Then we're playing one of the Wosu, so you can special summon this card from the hand by treating one other reptile monster from your hand and one monster your opponent controls, but you can't special summon nor activate monster effects for the rest of the turn except reptile, which is absolutely fine. You can only special summon this card once per turn, and if this card is treated, you discard 1 card, and if you do, you add this card back to the hand. This card's actually really kind of cool, and I think a lot of players undervalue it. The fact that it technically acts as a bit of a kaiju is really important, and it can also trigger off your Mitsurugi cards, so when you're able to get the tribute effects of most of these in the hand, it saves your normal summon and clears off one of your opponent's monsters without retaliation. Then we are playing 3 of the habakuri. Keeping in mind and remember that the habakuri is once per duel on certain effects, so you do need to remember that so you don't get caught out. So you get to ritual summon this card with Mitsurugi Ritual. Monsters your opponent controls lose 800 attack. You can reveal this card in the hand to special summon a Mitsurugi monster from the deck, then tribute a monster you control. You can only use this effect of habakuri once per duel. If this card is tributed, you get to add a Mitsurugi card from the deck to the hand, except itself. Then you get to special summon this card. You can only use the effect once per turn. Now remember, if this card is special summoned and it leaves the field, it cannot come back to the field because it hasn't been successfully ritual summoned. So it's also another very important point that you need to make sure you're aware of if you're playing this deck or facing this deck. We've then got the one Murakumo. So this is your aggressor, this is your board wiper in a sense as well. So if this card is special, you get to destroy all monsters your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you get a quick effect to activate the effect. Your opponent can discard 1 card, or that effect is negated. If this card is tributed, you get to add a Mitsurugi card from the deck to the hand, except itself, and then special summon it. We then play the one Futsu as well. So this one just gives you endless recursion. So if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, etc. in a damage state, you get to target a reptile monster in your graveyard, except itself, and special summon it. You can only activate this effect once per chain. If this card is treated, you get to add a Mitsurugi card from the deck to the hand, except itself, and then you get to special summon this card. You can only use the effect once per turn. And then the most expensive card in the main deck being 2 Mitsurugi Ritual. As I've already mentioned, the less of these you play, ideally you want to be playing at least one, but the less of these you play, the more of the Sanjis you want to play, and that's when you're going to lean into the other Mitsurugi Rituals that we've got in the form of the Magatama and the Mirror that we received in the most recent set. But as I've mentioned, you really want to be making sure you get one of these, and if your budget is $100, this is the priority you want to get hold of. This card is just absolutely incredible, and it's kind of what Ritual decks should have had all along, but we already see how good this card is for decks like this. So you can use this card to ritual summon any reptile monster, activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect once per turn. You ritual summon a reptile ritual monster from the deck by tributing a reptile monster from your hand or field whose total levels equal the level of the ritual monster. Alternatively, you get to ritual summon a reptile ritual monster from the hand by treating up to 2 reptile monsters from the hand, deck, or field whose total levels equal the level. Now, keep in mind, it's very important. The second effect cannot be ashed because you're you're tributing from the deck, you're not sending from the deck. But the first effect can because you're special summoning from the deck. So very important to remember those. Then a card that if it was the ultra rare would be even more cracked and expensive is triple Mitsurugi Prayers. So the benefit of something like this being a quick effect just allows you to dodge some targeted effects, which can be very, very important. And it also allows you to tribute off your reptile, triggering their secondary effects. So when you activate this card, you can also tribute a reptile monster from the hand or field, and then you apply one of these effects. Or if you tributed, you get to apply both at activation. So you add a Mitsurugi monster from the deck to the hand, you take 800 damage, and then you get to special summon a Mitsurugi monster from the hand or grave, but it cannot attack directly. Very important if you want to maintain your normal summon, and again, even more important if you're going to be playing multiple Sergis, because you'll probably tribute off your Sergi from the hand, summon it back, and then work from there. Then, because we're trying to keep the budget down as low as we can, double Mitsurugi Mirror. So this card could be used to ritual summon any reptile ritual monster from the hand or grave, but you must also tribute reptile monster from the hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster. If Murakumo, Futsu, or Habakuri you control is tributed while this card's in the graveyard, you get to shuffle it back into the deck, and then basically just shuffle it back into the deck. But the benefit of this one, unlike the other Mitsurugi Ritual, is it lists all 3 of your ritual monsters, which means when you activate Preparation of Rites, which I'll quickly jump to, that you're going to be playing 3 of, you can search out any of your ritual monsters, which is why having this at 2 is not the end of the world, because it means you can actually resolve multiple Preparation of Rites if you don't shuffle this back into the deck, which more times than not you probably will do. But it's one of them ones that because we're not playing as many ritual monsters, again, you're either playing more Sergis or you're going to be playing more Mirrors, entirely up to you. The one Mitsurugi Magatama. So during the main phase, activate one of the effects. Tribute a reptile monster, target a face-up card your opponent controls, and destroy it. Or ritual summon a Mitsurugi Ritual from the hand by treating monsters you control whose levels equal or exceed its level. So it's just a quick play ritual effect, which can be very, very useful. And again, we're leaning into this a little bit more because of the lack of ritual spell Mitsurugi Rituals we're playing. Then the one Sacred Boundary. So your opponent cannot target Mitsurugi Rituals you control, ritual monsters to be specific, you control with effects of monsters that were specialed from the extra deck. You get to target 4 Mitsurugi cards in your graveyard except itself, shuffle them into the deck. Then if your opponent controls a monster, you can make them tribute a monster, their choice. You can only use the effect once per turn, but the benefit of something like this in the grind state lets you recycle. In a build that doesn't have any budget restrictions, you won't be playing this. But again, this is one of the ones that if you are playing one of the Mitsurugi Ritual, you're trying to focus on the recyclability of it as much as you possibly can. The last Mitsurugi card is the one Mitsurugi Great Purification. So when your opponent activates a card or effect, you tribute a level 5 or higher reptile monster, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. You can banish this card from the graveyard to then target a reptile monster in your graveyard and special summon it, and if you do, tribute one other monster you control. You can only use one Mitsurugi Great Purification effect per turn, and only once that turn. Another benefit budget option of this particular deck, if you wanted to, is you could go down the Audatics, but it depends on how much you're able to pick up some of those Audatic cards are, because they've only had like 1 print, so they are a little bit tricky to get hold of. You just need to be looking in the right place. And then moving on to the utility cards, Triple Pot of Extravagance. As I mentioned, you don't really care about your extra deck that much. We are going pure Mitsurugis. All of the targets in the extra deck are either going to be like staple generic cards that you may or may not even want to go into. Ultimate Slayer targets if you can afford them. Super Body targets as a cheaper budget alternative to Ultimate Slayer targets. So it's entirely up to you. Then we've got the one Call by the Grave and the one Crossout, followed up by our hand trap lineup of free Droll, free Ash, double Ghost Bell, and free Infinite Impermanence. These are all selective up to you. The reason that I kept the Crossout in here is because I'm playing Bells, Ashes, and Drolls, and even Imperms that can be quite effective for you against you. So they're cards that you can kind of counteract, and you're basically playing 2 Call by the Graves to help you do so as the space is there. The main deck of Draw Unlock Bird is entirely up to the environment. At the end of the day, if you're going to an environment that all they're being played is Malices, then of course you're going to choose to main deck something like a Lancia. But if you're going to an environment like this where it's a little bit more balanced, and even in the Mitsurugi Mirror, Draw Unlock Bird can put in a heck of a lot of work for you, which is why you'd want to focus on it. Now I'm going to show you the extra deck. So as already mentioned, for the extra deck, we have got our Ultimate Slayer targets of Natis, Tri-Brigade Arms, Malong, and the Adjugator. Again, it kind of comes down to whatever you want. I'm going to be showing you more than 15 extra deck cards just so you can have a bit of an idea of what cards you could put into if you don't want to play Ultimate Slayer or if you don't want to play Super Poly. For the Super Poly, we've got the Mysterion, the Dragon Crown. This is basically in here for Blue Eyes and Blue Eyes only. Mud Dragon, Garura, Dracus Tapelia. You can also consider your World Chalice Guard Dragon, especially if your local environment is on, more so if they're on the a Code Talker, because that would then allow them to bring back multiple Link monsters, and this can pretty much clear 3 of them off. If they're not going to be using that Code Talker, but they're going on the Topologic version, you can also work your way into the Earth Golem Agnista. So this requires 3 Link monsters, this requires 1 Cyberse and a Link, so you just adapt it to the environment if you see fit. The staple cards that you can play, whether they're that effective for you or not is entirely up to you, is SP Little Knight, Dark the Dark Charmer, Typhon, King of the Imps, Ilverswarm Nightmare, Baguska, Daguerres, Tornado Dragon, basically any rank 4 engine you want. You could go for something along the lines of a Castel, you could go for Gargoyle Cowboy. It is entirely up to you. You've got so much flexibility with the extra deck. That's why we're playing Extrav. If you want to be a little bit more controlled with the extra deck, that's when you'd start to look at Prosperity instead, but it's entirely up to you. Now it's like a demo side deck option for something you to look into, entirely up to you again on the environment and what you've got. But Triple Lancia, you can play 3 evenly matched. I'm just showing you 1 evenly matched as an option of what you could play. So you've got evenly matched, Ultimate Slayer, Sanctums, you can play multiple of them as well. Dragon's Mind isn't a bad option because this allows you to basically, if you control a monster with 2500 original attack or defense, which you could work your way into your extra deck for a monster like that, but then all of your ritual monsters, which you're ideally looking to end your field on, has 34 defense, 32 attack, and then the only one that doesn't really hit that requirement is the habakuri. But more times than not, your end field for Mitsurugi should definitely be one of these 2 cards. So that fits within your Dragon Mind option. If you're not a fan of it or you're not seeing yourself ending your field like that, then you could cut this out completely. You've obviously have Lightning Storms, Dusters. You could put in Ghost Ogres if they're effective for you, Nibiru's. It really is entirely up to you what you have access to. But the deck is still really, really fun. And this is why I'm saying it's probably one of the best budget decks. Because when you're trying to compare it to the other competitive decks that are getting these tops left, right, and center, this one, its price value comes nowhere near how expensive the rest are. So I think this deck is definitely one to be looking out for. And the other benefit of a deck like this, where Malice and Raizio are already on the chopping block for Konami, maybe in another upcoming Forbidden Unlimited list, they might get another hit. This deck should be safe within reason. And I also feel we're going to be getting new support from this through the OCG, not through the TCG, as they've already announced that the next core set will be a new TCG exclusive. But with this one specifically, we might be seeing even more support when the OCG get them. I don't know what broken support the OCG could give this deck to break it even more, as I feel that the most recent wave, I'm so glad that they were super rares, because if they were anything higher, the prices would have been through the roof. But with a deck like this, I do think it's very, very powerful, very, very good. And if you have the ability to upgrade and add in impulses, and then add in a 3rd Mitsurugi ritual, that's when you can start sacrificing those additional cards that we've already shown you, in the form of, you'd cut down the mirror to play mirror at 1, so I'll show you the cards you'll cut out once I get to them. So you'd cut out the boundary, you don't really need to be playing that. You can cut out the mirror, you could cut out the Magatama if you wanted to as well. It just gives you a bit more flexibility on what you do and do not want to be using, and do and do not want to be seeing. So entirely up to you on the flexibility of it. Really comes down to your play style, your budget available to you. But I thought this would be a cool pure profile to show you, and rather than rinse and repeating all of the competitive decks out there, like you already know what they look like, I thought I'd bring you some budget alternatives and some budget options for the deck if you wanted to put it together as you're a Ritual fan, Reptile fan, or just a TCG exclusive fan, and you want to be able to put them together and still be able to do well with them. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them as always. But for now, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.